In 2012, I was living in a house in Sacramento with my sister, her children, her alcoholic father, and her abusive boyfriend. There was always fights breaking out and the house was always full of negative energy. At this time, I was very involved with the Christian church across my street. I used it as an escape for the children and I, and despite the drama at home, I was becoming at peace spiritually after being saved at the church and creating solid friendships with people in my worship group. Then I started having horrible dreams. Every night I would have terrible demonic dreams that I couldn't wake myself up from. They never made very much sense and I would be distracted all day wondering what they could mean. I would pray to cleanse my room and I hung crosses over my bed in hopes of getting them to stop. My pastor prayed for me and they would stop for a few days, but they always came back. I started having a hard time sleeping. I would stay awake in my bed, afraid of what I would see when I closed my eyes. I hated being in my room because it felt dark and ominous, even during the day. I kept asking God why I was having such terrible dreams. And then I woke up one night in the middle of one of my nightmares. I couldn't move. All I could see was a shadow person standing in the middle of my room. The shadow had the build of a man, and it was very hard to see any real detail other than a blurry shape and his grayish red eyes. He was just staring at me. He never moved. It felt like he was looking through me rather than at me. I was terrified and prayed in my head. I felt like I was paralyzed. And then I would sleep and have no dreams. It would continue like this every night. I would have a bad dream and then wake up to seeing it in the same exact spot, looking through me. I could never move and was just forced to stare at it until I would go into gray, dreamless sleep. I never remembered closing my eyes to sleep after seeing it, but I remember that I would be so tired and relieved when I woke up from a nightmare, and then would panic when I saw the shadow figure. I prayed with my church continuously, and eventually it all stopped. The dreams and figures stopped at the same time. I don't know if it was causing my dreams or just watching me have them. I also don't know if it was responsible for waking me up, but I do know it was the reason I couldn't move when I did. I moved to Nevada shortly after it stopped. I didn't have any trouble for a couple years, and then while at work, I would see a shadow out of the corner of my eye. I could never seem to catch it out of my peripheral vision. I would only see something dart away. The nightmares came back, but I didn't wake up to the shadow figure like before. I started praying again, and after a few weeks it stopped once again. It's been another 2 years and I haven't seen it or had any nightmares. The shadow person may have been a demon like my pastor suggests, but I believe it belongs to its own spiritual group. It was cold and ominous, but it never directly tried anything. It just watched me, which was pretty intimidating. Also, it was never actually in my nightmares. It was just around when I had them, watching me. The story involves my middle child. She's 11 now, but at the time this happened, she was 8. Bedtime back then was like pulling teeth. It was painful. I couldn't get her to sleep to save my life. My youngest child, then was 7, rarely had trouble getting her to sleep. Once I said bedtime, asleep she went. But my middle child would stay awake for hours, it seemed. I'd have to make the usual threats. If you don't go to sleep, you won't get to play tomorrow, etc. At the time, they slept in bunk beds, the youngest on the bottom. One night, I'm doing the same routine. Go to sleep, you have school tomorrow, you need your sleep. It was about an hour after I put them to bed that she yelled for me to come in. I went in, thinking she's going to give me a bunch of excuses. Always needing a drink, need to use the bathroom, I forgot to brush my teeth. This time she just had tears in her eyes. She's just giving me this pleading look. I ask what does she want? She just keeps looking at me with tears in her eyes. I finally said, you know you can tell me anything and I won't get mad. She said there is someone keeping her up. That's why she can't go to sleep. Every night. I said, well, your sister is asleep, so you can't blame that on her. She keeps looking at me, so I asked, what is going on? Being on the top bunk, she scoots toward the bottom, motions me over. I go over and she whispers that the shadow is keeping her awake. She says it won't let her sleep. It's scaring her. This, of course, surprises me. I had seen shadows myself, full shadows of people darting here and there in my hallway, mostly when I sat on my couch and would catch them moving, and always at night. So this surprised me when she tells me this. The first thing in a mother's head is the question, is she making up a story so she won't have to go to sleep? But knowing what I know and experiencing things I've experienced, that thought quickly flew out of my head. I've never said anything to the kids about seeing shadows. I don't want to scare them. I've not even said anything to anyone else for fear of ridicule. Who would believe me? I know what I've seen, and that was good enough for me. But now my child is seeing these things and it's scaring the bejesus out of her. So I asked some questions like, where is the shadow now? At the corner of my bed, at the top. I asked, how do you know it's there now with the light on? She said, he's always there at night. She said the bunk corner is square and that after a while, after the lights go out, it isn't square anymore. It's a person's head. It's round and he's there watching her. I asked, what did it look like? She said he had a round head and his head reaches right at the corner of her bed like he's standing up. I asked why she kept saying he. She said she could just tell it was a man. I asked, does it do anything to you? No, he just stares at her and scares her. I asked, does he move? She said sometimes he will move a little, but it's always at the head of the bed, staring at her. She can't sleep. She's afraid and doesn't know what it is or what it wants. So I finally told her to lay down and try to sleep. I'll stand there until she falls asleep. She finally fell asleep while I stood there for the longest time. Since I've already seen these things and know basically about them, I got very mad, but I waited a little longer to see if he is going to move. After a while, nothing happened, and me being an impatient person, I just walk over to the bunk, stand and stare at the place she said it always is. This rage boiled in me. I was very angry and threatening towards this thing. I simply did what a mother does. I did it quietly. I threatened this thing and I told it whatever it was looking for was not in my daughter's bedroom, and that if it ever came here again and scared my children, I most certainly would find a way to destroy it as if it never existed. This coming from me, a mother of 3 children who doesn't want them hurt, let alone scared out of their minds to where they can't even sleep. I told it that it was the lowest form, the scummiest thing that ever existed, to want to scare an 8-year-old child no matter what it wanted. After many other things I said to it, it must have either left or went to another room, but it's hard to tell. I'm sure any other shadow person listening got my message. After that happened, she's been able to sleep and sleep soundly. I've had no problems since, and if I ever have any similar problems, I'll find a way to keep my word. There's enough bad in this world already with just the living, let alone children having problems with the non-living. I don't know if it was the same shadow person that was in my daughter's bedroom, and I don't think it was, but still I see shadows moving in my hallway. However, while sitting on my couch one night watching TV, I noticed to my right a black, bulky mass, about as tall as 4 foot, standing beside me. I noticed it basically just standing there, and it startled me at first, but as soon as I tried to get a full view, it was gone. Just recently something else happened to me personally, in my bedroom, but it doesn't involve a shadow person, because what I seen was full view and not a shadow. I could describe the clothing, the face, everything. He was as solid as you or me. It seemed to be a man, but whatever it was stood by my bed and just stared at me. Then when I screamed, it was gone. This happened a few nights ago, but I think that is another story on a totally different subject. And that did scare the hell out of me. In any case, I'll just keep my eyes peeled and mind open and deal with things as they come.